Lauren, how long ago did you launch your Hyrox program?
I launched my Hyrox program 2 months ago.
And how much revenue have you brought in since then just from Hyrox?
6K.
Welcome to this episode of Run a Profitable Gym. I'm your host, John Franklin, the CEO of Two Brain Business, and with me today is a very special guest, Lauren DiSessa of Shelton Athletics. Lauren, thank you for being here.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you.
I invited you here because we got to hang out at the Two Brain Business Tinker Meetup in Phoenix, which is our group of the best gym owners in the program. And everybody was talking about Hyrox and the strategies. And there were just crowds of people convening around you because you had just launched your Hyrox program and it is off to a phenomenal start. So we're going to talk about exactly what you did, the strategies you did to launch, and maybe you can give the people tips and advice if you got to do it all over again. But before we do that, tell us about Shelton Athletics.
So Shelton Athletics has been around since 2019. I became a part of a co-ownership team as a strategic partner in 2021, and most recently in 2025 took over as sole owner. So we are a primarily group class training gym with large group functional fitness classes. We also do small group strength training, as well as personal training and semi-private training, and obviously Hyrox.
Yay.
Yay, Hyrox.
And so were you like a staff member or how did you get involved in the ownership group in 2021?
Great question. Yeah, so I actually was leaving another gym at the time that I was working at because I wanted to pursue doing just personal training. So as I progressed through my fitness career, and I actually had reached out to someone that I knew that was working at this gym, and I was like, hey, I need a place to come and train my people. Like, you think that they would be into that? And so we got connected to talk to the owners at the time. I started coming in here and just like renting space basically to bring all my clients for personal training, which was awesome, worked out well. And then I was just kind of like in the background of watching classes and people coming in and out of the gym and how things were running. So I got to see a lot before actually becoming a part of the team.
And did you know you wanted to own the gym outright one day? Did you have dreams of gym ownership or was this kind of like an accidental thing for you?
I would say my life goal was never to own a gym. However, now that I'm in it, I know that I shouldn't be doing anything else. But at the time, they had someone on staff who was leaving. And the idea just kind of popped into my head to like offer some help. I was like, hey, you have this person leaving your team. That's going to leave a huge hole for you guys. They are not in the fitness industry. And I was like, I could really help you build and grow this gym, but I'm not doing it as like a head coach or a manager. I was like, if you want me, I'm coming in as an owner. And that's how that story went. So I bought in to ownership.
And then that was the 2021 or is
That
that
was in
when
2021. Yeah.
Okay. And then you took over the gym outright 4 years later. What happened there?
Yeah, so it was something that when we actually sat down first as a team, it was always in the long-term plan that they would eventually exit and I would most likely take over. We didn't really have a clear timeline for that, but 2025, there was just a natural breaking point where things were taking them in other directions and I was really pouring all of my energy into this. So it was just a natural time for it to start.
And buying an existing gym, especially one that you are a part of and you understand, is one of my favorite paths to gym ownership. Yeah. We just released a full episode with Matt Becker called How to Buy a Gym Step by Step. So if you are interested and you like Lauren's story and you want to know the nuts and bolts of that, I recommend going and listening to that. How has it been going since you took over as the sole owner?
It's been awesome. I mean, as most people know who are in partnership teams, sometimes it can be difficult to run a gym with multiple people at the top. And so it's been great to be able to implement a lot of things that I wanted to do that when I had partners, my hands were kind of tied, being that we needed to have, a majority decision on making certain changes. And so it's been really awesome to be able to fully execute that vision. Obviously, it's never done. We're still changing things all the time, but, it's been great.
And so aside from the Hyrox, which we're going to get into shortly here,
Mhm.
what is the primary training you guys do? Is it large group, small group, a little bit of both? Talk to me about the actual in-gym experience when you go to sign up and buy a membership from you.
Yeah. So our primary revenue still comes from our large group functional fitness classes, then followed by our newest program, small group strength training, which is it's definitely up and coming. And then I would say right now, followed by Hyrox.
Okay. And you're in Shelton, Connecticut, which how far are you from, like, is that rural? Is it a city? For people who don't know Shelton, Connecticut, tell us about the type of people you train your market.
Yeah, so Shelton, Connecticut is about an hour and a half outside of New York City. So we're a part of what's called Fairfield County in Connecticut. And so, but we are the uppermost town in Fairfield County. So over the past few years, especially like after COVID, a lot of people from the surrounding tri-state area started to move up this way, upper Fairfield County. And so Shelton has really been just growing and booming over the past few years. I've actually watched it transform as I've been here since 2021, just businesses coming in and things growing. So, we're definitely in a more upper middle class area. So people are definitely looking for things that are a little bit more high end in the fitness experience and have a little bit more money to spend.
And if I walk in your gym as the average person, like 30, 35, 40, 45, what's your like target demo?
Yeah, so our average member, we are really in between 30s to 50s is our like primary demographic. So we have, yeah, like a couple people in their 20s, and we do actually more so with personal training. We have a lot of people who are 55 plus, which is really cool because they know they could really use extra coaching and attention. But primarily, you're going to see people in between like 35 to 55.
So it's going to skew a little older than a place like Stanford, which is right outside the city and has kind of like that younger crowd.
Yes, correct.
Okay, perfect. And let's talk about like pricing so we can anchor that before we get into the high rock
Mhm.
stuff. So for group and then small group personal training, what are you charging for those services?
Yeah, so we keep our service offerings for large group really simple. We only have one type of membership, that's our unlimited, and it's 195 a month plus tax.
Okay. And
For
then
our
small group?
these Yep, small group strength training is 349 every 4 weeks, and that program is only 3 times a week.
Okay. Awesome. So I'd say it's not as expensive as like a New York City borough gym, but if you're listening to this from some rural middle part of the country, that probably sounds on the higher end. Now, let's talk about your journey into Hyrox. When did you start doing Hyrox and what made you want to launch an affiliate program in your gym?
Yeah, so I was actually last year, right around the same time, I was still really active in personal training inside the gym. I'm really have phased out most of that as of this year, but I had athletes inquiring that wanted to get trained for races. And so at that same time, was obviously on Instagram. I'm like seeing things about High Rocks pop up, and I'm like, this seems like it's right up my alley. I used to compete in CrossFit, and I had a back injury, and as a lot of us do. And so I spent some time really backing away from CrossFit style training. And during that time, one of the things that didn't hurt me was running. So I really just started to dive more into that and running races. And then I was like, perfect. Now there's this thing called Hyrox that I can still get that competitive itch scratched. And then again, at that same time, I was getting athletes inquiring to the gym wanting to train for these style of races. So my first race was last year. It was February of last year in Las Vegas.
Oh, wow. So you traveled.
Yeah.
And what was that experience like for someone who hasn't done a Hyrox before?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I always like to call them fitness vacations. Like, I have definitely traveled a lot for fitness competitions previously, so that wasn't new to me. But it was first time in Vegas, first time doing a High Rocks, and I could not say enough good things about it. The competition was extremely well run, just in its infrastructure and like moving all of those athletes around in the space, like creating such a great buzz in the environment. It was amazing. I think that answered the question, but it was just a really cool experience.
And so when you left that, were you like, I'm going to launch this in my gym, or did a little time go by? Like, what was the thing that made you be like, okay, this is a thing I enjoy doing, to this is a
Mhm.
thing I want to share with my members?
Yeah. So around that same time when I came back, I was like, yeah, now that I know there was some interest out there, we were getting again more interest on the personal training side to begin, because people were like, I don't know what this is, and I know that I need to train for it, but I'm not quite sure how to do it. But then over like the next few months, I was like, "Oh, I really want to have a group class." And some people, through seeing our experience in going to Vegas, we actually had a group of us from the gym do the race. And then people were starting to get curious. So at that time, I was like, I'm gonna like soft launch a class. And I would say this is something that did not work. So the way that we structured it to begin was that on Saturdays during our regular group class times, that you could either choose to do our regular functional fitness class or the Hyrox workout. And that at that time, I think didn't work for two different reasons. I think people were still like, I don't know what that is. I don't want to do it. I want to do my functional fitness, my CrossFit style workouts, and that's it. And then on the other hand, just having it at the same time and with only one coach really watered down the whole experience of what the whole Hyrox vibe was. So that did not work at the time. So that was last year.
Sounds like a nightmare. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it was kind
it
of
was
like
not
treated
good.
as like this afterthought, basically, for the two people who knew exactly what it was in your gym, and then everybody
Yep.
else was just confused.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you sunsetted that, and you
Yeah.
decided you're going to do like an official launch.
Yeah.
Walk me through that. How did you go about, like, when did you reinvigorate the program, and what did you do differently this time around?
Yeah. So since the Vegas race, after that, myself and other people in the gym, we did two more races, Hyrox Boston and Hyrox New York City. And so right after Hyrox New York City last year, I was like, okay, like it's the buzz wasn't it was catching, but it wasn't quite to where it is right now. Over the past few months, it's just exploded. But I was like, the key to this is timing. So I was like, what we really need to do going into the next High Rocks season, and even I wasn't really sure what that was at the time, but I was figuring it out as I went, through the journey. I was like, we have to hit the right timing with this. We're in an area where we have major races happening. Again, like we have New York City, we have Boston, and other races, DC, other
DC
races
would be the
along
other
the,
one. Yeah.
yeah. And now there's more, but so we need to plan our training more around when there's upcoming races and try to like catch the buzz from that. So what we did this time around is once the race calendar dropped, so at that time I was already a Hyrox affiliate. I became a Hyrox affiliate and a Hyrox performance coach last year. So we already were getting all the emails and everything, with race dates and pre-sale codes and all of that. So I was like, all right, once we get the race calendar, once it drops, we're going to use that to plan out like a new launch essentially. So race calendar came out. We knew when New York City was going to be, and we knew when the pre-sale for the race was. So that was also very pivotal in this start. So what we did was based on when the pre-sale was, we launched what we called High Rock Saturdays. So I was like, we're going to create a completely separate class where we can really match the vibe of what it feels like to be at a High Rocks race and bring that into the class format. Because that's not the way that we run our CrossFit style classes. If you're more familiar with CrossFit, the style of class is, it's more coach driven. It's structured in a way, you're doing warm up, strength progression, and a workout. This was like, let's have fun, let's throw down, let's bring the vibes and have a good time. So it needed a lot of energy behind it.
I'm all about vibes and a good time. You're doing
Yeah.
a good job selling it.
Thank
So,
you.
so for those who aren't familiar with seasons, when you say season, it's just basically coordinating the training around a race in your metro. So if you're in the New York City area, the New York race is like last week in May, first week in June. It's turned into like this 10-day festival now with
Yeah.
50,000 people doing it. And so most people get going for that about, maybe 4 or 5 months out, right? Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. So then kind of dies down for a little while. And then there's a second season on the second half of the year. And the fall event for your area would probably be the Boston one, right?
Boston. Yeah.
So you'll probably take a break after the New York one and then pick back up going into Boston.
Well, so they're pretty, in terms of a training block, they're close enough together that we're not actually going to take time off in between. And what we're really trying to do now, and we could talk more about this at another part, but what we're really trying to do now is get people to understand that in order to train for Hyrox, you need to do things just outside of training a Hyrox race. So we're really trying to educate the people that have come into the gym since we launched this program on, hey, the best way to train for this is to actually be in our large group classes and then do our Hyrox specialty classes as like an add-on to all of that. But if you want more comprehensive training, you're going to have to do something more.
So the Hyrox brings people in and then it supplements the core thing you do because you need aerobic capacity, you need strength, you need to do all the stuff that happens in your regular group class, what I'm hearing.
Right. Yes. And we have translatable skills in those classes. So, we know that people don't inherently know how to train, which is why they come to gyms like this to get that guidance. And we can provide a full comprehensive training plan through all the class offerings that we have.
So I see here you made your first announcement post at the end of January. What did you say?
Yeah, so we created a video for an Instagram reel with it was clips of races that myself and our members had done, just saying, we are launching Hyrox Saturdays at Shelton Athletics. Like Saturdays, 7:30, open house was planned for Valentine's Day. So open house 2/14, come sign up.
And okay, so that was 2-3 weeks before this open house, the official kickoff of
Correct,
the Hyrox
yeah.
season, the Hyrox program, V2 in Shelton. So explain what the open house was.
Yeah, so the open house was a free workout that anyone could come to. You just had to pre-register through the link either that we sent you. We had Instagram bio. We also had people can reach out to our text line, get the link there. Whatever it was, we just tried to get them the link. So it was a way that they could come experience what the Hyrox Saturday classes were going to be like and just meet the coaches.
So it was a free trial, basically.
Yeah.
You don't know what this is. Maybe you're curious. Just come here and I'll show you. I'll show you what high energy and vibes and a good time looks like.
We will show you the vibes. Yes.
Okay. And how many people showed up to that first one?
So we had 50 people signed up, and out of those, 40 showed.
Okay. And how many of those were members of your gym?
For the open house, it was about 30% were existing members and 70% were from outside the gym.
And that's one of the things that blows my mind as I talk to successful Hyrox affiliates is just the sheer amount of non-members who turn up for this stuff. Mm-hmm. Where do these other 70% come from?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of different places, different gyms. So different gyms that either don't offer Hyrox training, a little bit people coming out of their garage gyms of hey, I don't have this equipment and I need to train on it and you guys have it. So it's a mix, various people who train on their own and also people that are coming from other gyms where they don't have access to the equipment or Hyrox classes.
And so the 7:30 jam sesh, is this an hour, 90 minutes? What's going on in that?
Yeah, so it's an hour-long class. What we do is we do a warm-up together as a group. Depending on the day, some days we'll do a quick skill breakdown of one of the Hyrox stations, just giving key tips and pointers of what you want to know at these particular stations. However, if it's a longer workout, so we will skip the skill session and just get prepped and go into the workout. Because the workouts, we try to make them long on purpose, being that most people who are racing in Hyrox are like racing for above 60 minutes, usually in like the 60 to 90, maybe hour 45 range. So we're trying to make the workouts something longer than what they would do in a normal class. So they range anywhere between like 40 to 50 minutes, depending on the planned workout.
So everybody comes, you turn out, we have a good time. Now, what do you sell them on when that's all said and done? After this open house, we're just talking about the initial
Okay.
launch here.
Yeah. So the initial launch for the open house, we had planned two different packages. So we had either a Hyrox 5-pack or a Hyrox 10-pack, which were just specifically for those classes. So it's only the one class a week. Saturdays at 7:30, they could purchase either a 5-pack or a 10-pack. Or if they weren't going to commit to that, then they could do a drop-in
And
for
what are you
future
charging
sessions.
for these?
So the drop-in rate for Hyrox is 40. Our Hyrox 5-pack is 150 and the 10-pack is 250.
So 40 a session for one, 30 a session for five, 25 if you're committing to 10.
Correct.
And if you are a member in your gym, do you make them pay for these as well, or is that included in the membership?
I decided to include them in the membership, and I'm going to stick by that decision because I feel like it has been a great retention tool for us of just getting people interested in other things and finding new ways to motivate themselves.
And so if somebody has come to any of the sessions since then, so let's see, we're 8 weeks in, so you've run 8 sessions so far. Does that 7:30 a.m.
Yeah, sounds about
jam
correct.
sessions? Okay.
Including a full simulation last week.
All right. We'll hold off on that. So we'll
Okay.
explain what that is. So people who are unfamiliar, we don't drop too much at them.
Okay, got it.
So they show up, they drop in for the class. Anytime after that open house, they're paying, right? It's $40 if you want to come.
Yes, correct. So anytime after the open house was a paid session.
And then if you want to sell these people into classes or some type of process where you reach out to them after the fact, hey, do you have a good time? Do you want to do a 5-pack? Like, how do you talk with the, other people who are non-members who attend these like one-off classes?
Yeah, so specifically after the open house, it was two points of contact. So it was an email and then also a same day text. So of like, hey, we loved having you. If you want to do more of this, like here's a link to sign up for our 5-pack and 10-pack. But we also had a lot of people, I want to say before the open house was even over, I think we had sold 13 packs. So what we did for the open house, which was really smart of us, is we set up knowing that we were going to be super busy because there was going to be tons of people from outside the gym that we were going to want to talk to, get to know. And even though I had support staff on hand, we created QR codes for the 2 packs and we're like, hey, awesome, you want to buy a 5-pack, scan that QR code so we could like keep talking to this person and that person. And honestly, that worked out extremely well.
And so how many packs in total have you sold so far in the first 2 months since the launch?
Yeah, so we're at about 30 packs right now, not including drop-ins.
Which, doing back of the envelope math here, that sounds like a little over $4,000 in incremental revenue.
A little bit more than that, so a little closer to 5.
Okay. And then
More.
and then you had like the one-offs, right? And so how much of one-off revenue did you do on top of that?
Yeah, so from just the drop-ins alone, because we get at least 2 drop-ins per class. So we're at a little over, I think, 600 just in drop-ins from the Hyrox. And then we also had additional revenue from the full simulation, because if you had a class pack, that would be included where you could use one of your classes towards a full simulation. But then if you didn't, you had to purchase for a solo, a $50 ticket, or a doubles, you had to purchase a $100 ticket.
Okay. So all in so far, we're averaging about $3,000 a month in incremental revenue. And the only thing we've done is add a class at 7:30 on Saturday.
That is it.
And You said 40 people showed up for that initial one. Is it still around 40 people every weekend, or has it died down or gotten bigger? Like, what's typical attendance like now?
Yeah, so right now, typical attendance for a class is around 25 to 30 people.
Okay, so it's like a little bit smaller than the free class, but
hmm
it's still like a lot, probably larger than an average Saturday class for you.
Yes. Yeah, much larger than our average Saturday classes. And we're still getting new people in every class, which is crazy.
What percentage of the people in the, Saturday class are new on average?
So new meaning like
Not
package
a
or
member of your
like,
gym.
okay. Yeah. Again, anywhere between like 60 to 70% of the people in that class are new to the gym.
So prospects, just 70%
Absolutely.
of that 25 to 30 people are prospects, and they're paying to show up to your gym to work out and get a taste of the food you're cooking.
Absolutely. Those vibes.
Okay, good. I love that. I love that. And so you talked about a simulation. For someone who's not familiar, explain the difference between a class and a simulation.
So in our regular Hyrox Saturday classes, the formats and the movements will vary. Even sometimes we're doing movements that you won't necessarily see in a race, but we know that translate into movements that you do in Hyrox. So different than a full simulation, where in a full simulation, we are actually doing the race as you would on race day, as close as obviously given our space, given that as close as we possibly can to a full race format.
So if you come into a regular Saturday class, it's probably going to be a little more circuit, but you're doing the high rocks movement. It's going to be, you mentioned 40 to 50 minutes long. A simulation is going to be like an actual high rocks, or as close to an actual high rocks as you can get. And so that's going to
Yes.
take, 2 hours versus an hour, and that's why it's more expensive.
Yep. And just the infrastructures of the whole thing takes a lot more effort for us to set up and to do and the execution of it. So just we really wanted to create a high level experience for people coming in looking to really test themselves before race day. So we felt like that justified an increase in price. And it also gave us again another incentive for people buying the packs that, hey, if you buy one of these packs, you can sign up for the full simulation.
So you're saving it like
Right.
40% off of what it would
Yeah,
have
you're
cost.
saving
Yeah.
money. People love that.
And so is the idea to do a simulation once every 8 weeks, or is it just kind of you wanted to test it out and then decide from there when you're going to do it again? What's the plan for that?
Yeah, so the way that we've decided we're going to do it is that about, like you said, about every 8 weeks. So we're looking to target about halfway through the training block of the particular race that we're targeting. So that's why we chose this particular date for New York City. Then we're going to choose a date prior to Boston to target that. So right now we're looking at end of July, beginning of August for the next one. And then we have a lot of people who are also interested in doing Tampa. So we're also going to plan a simulation halfway through that block as well, because it's actually really close to Boston. So maybe there'll be one for both, not sure, but yes.
Awesome. So it's, $6,000 in incremental revenue without charging your existing members an extra dollar, which I've heard people going either way on that. And so there's retention benefits there that you're saying that we haven't really classified or looked into yet. Have any of the people who've bought drop-ins or packs or anything, have they become members of the gym as a result of that?
So right now it's very few, but that's really our next target. So I think right now we have one or two with actually a couple more prospects that we're zoning in on this week who have expressed interest. So that's really what we're working on in terms of shifting the marketing of like not just being race ready by doing the Hyrox classes, but being race ready by having a coach and a comprehensive training plan with Sheldon Athletics.
Well, you say one or two. If it's two, that's an extra member a month. Like our state of the industry data shows that the average group training gym only gets around 5 or 6 new members
Hmm.
a month. So that's a 20% improvement You know, if you gave me something that gave me, a bump on my revenue and increased my sales by 20%, you'd be my best friend, Lauren. So
Okay. All right.
I don't think you should downplay that. It may sound small in
True.
total numbers, but when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, like, that's awesome for something that only takes an hour, right?
Yeah.
For me to
Very
go out
true.
and get a member, get the lead, do the lead gen, bring them in, do a trial, whatever. Like they just came in, they paid you for that, and then they just happened to say, "Hey, I want to do what you do," which I think is awesome. Now, in terms of marketing it since the open house, what are you doing to get people to show up on Saturday? What are you doing to draw people in? Like, what is the secret to keeping the program vibrant once that initial launch happens?
So we have really worked on the past, probably, let's see, since really the beginning of this year, worked on revamping our social strategy. So we are we did three strategic posts on our Instagram about the actual program itself and about the simulation. But then we're taking videos during these classes, posting it on our stories constantly. I'm also tying it into like my personal brand and my Instagram since I'm really active in doing the races right now, which I think personally, it really helps to have someone in your community. It doesn't necessarily have to be the owner. It just so happens it's me, but we also have tons of coaches and members who are now invested in it too. But someone has to be passionate about this. I feel like with any program, if you don't have someone who's really excited about it and then you try to go push it, like that excitement just isn't there.
So let's go a little deeper on that. So
Okay.
that's one thing you would recommend is that you need somebody who's like done a race and actually likes this stuff. Like
Yeah.
that's the first piece. What other, because sometimes we'll get people who maybe tried it, like your V1 version is like, oh, this
hmm
thing that's kind of an afterthought and it flopped. What other things do you think are important if you want to launch Hyrox successfully in your gym?
I think giving it a dedicated space, like in terms of class time. So we knew that we weren't going to sandwich it in with other classes. We're like, this is its own thing. Again, it's a different energy than our other classes, and we want it to be distinguished as a different offering than our other programs. So I feel like that was really key of like giving it its own spotlight. And the other thing, which I've talked to a lot of the other like owners and Tinker about, is having the equipment. So that is a lot of what we hear of why people are coming into the gym is like, oh, I don't have a skier or access to a skier. I don't have sleds or I don't have the room to push a sled in my garage. So having the right equipment is definitely key in, I think, executing this at like a high level.
And when you say the right equipment, do you have the actual like center Hyrox branded stuff, or do you have like sleds, concept twos, like the core pieces, but maybe not the Hyrox specific ones?
So a little bit of both now. So we decided to invest some money back into this program. So we had a smaller sled fleet, and then we just increased it by buying three of the center Hyrox branded sleds, which is cool. Like people are like, oh wow, this is awesome. Like this is actually what I'm gonna be training with on race day. Do I think that part is necessary? I don't think it's necessary to have the branded equipment. However, I do see that in the future definitely being a draw for people who are doing the races that they get to train on the actual equipment. And we will definitely use that in our marketing now.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard from people who are maybe 2 years into it. They keep reinvesting into the center stuff because then, if the gyms around them start offering Hyrox programs, the people who are most serious about it are going to go with the people who have the actual equipment. And I know there have been talks in the Tinker group where someone's like, "Oh, I don't want to invest $8,000 into equipment." And fine, I understand that that's probably a lot for
hmm
some people, but one of the like I talked to that specific tinker and said, "Hey, think of it this way. This stuff is pretty high value. There's like a high demand for it. So let's say you do this, it flops, you don't want it. Like you're not out that $8,000. Like
hmm
center equipment is hot right now. So you can probably, if you spend eight, you can probably sell it for seven after beating the crap out of it for 2 years. And I think that's a better way to look at it when you're thinking about reinvesting into the opportunity."
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've been creative, right? Obviously, I've tried to increase our sleds and stuff like that by looking on Marketplace. And I will tell you, a year ago when I was looking, I could find like one-offs where I like picked up a couple sleds. And now when you go on there, you can't find them or they disappear very quickly. So I agree. It's if you purchase that type of equipment, you'll probably end up returning on your investment in very much the same way as with if you invest into Concept 2, like obviously we use Concept 2 ski ergs, Concept 2 rowers. Those you could almost sell at their value if you keep them looking nice if you want to resell it at any point. So it's totally worth it.
And most gym owners, especially ones coming from like a group training background, instinctively know this if they bought Rogue equipment as well. Like Rogue equipment holds its value so well. And so whatever reason you bought too many barbells or you bought too many whatever, as long as it's not like a big commercial rig, it's going to be pretty easy to offload some of that stuff if for whatever reason you don't need it anymore. So we talked about doing a race, caring about Hyrox, giving it its own dedicated time, and having the right equipment so you can attract people from these run clubs, garages, other gyms that don't necessarily have the equipment or the environment for that. Anything else we missed, or is that the starter checkbox?
I would say those are definitely the 3 starter checkboxes for sure.
Okay, awesome. And so we have our sim now. We have our weekly class, that's doing great things for you. What's next? Are you going to scale this out? Are you going to do more than one class? Or are you just chilling? You're happy with what's going on. You're going to just let it ride for a while.
Yeah, I've been debating about this for a little bit. I think we are going to jump into adding an additional class. I'm happy how we started because I think, with anything, sometimes as gym owners, we get a little too excited and we're like, man, I love this. Let's just create this whole program. We're going to do all these days. And then you've invested all of this time, this money in making it happen. And then it doesn't end up working out. So this is clearly proven that it works. So I would like to create, again, a way for people who are training for the races, give them a little bit more comprehensive training and a way to like use those packs a little bit faster. And then see how potentially adding in one more class goes.
So that's our 4th checkbox right there. Start small.
Yes, start small for sure.
Start small, sell it out, add from there.
Yes.
Awesome. And so, you mentioned you're going to have a bunch of people in your gym or a bunch of people did Las Vegas. How many people from your gym, your classes are going to be doing New York, which is the next major run area?
Man. So existing members in the gym, I want to say we have between solo and doubles teams. I think we have like at least 8 teams and solo. But then of the people who have then been participating in the classes, I think it's like 90% of those people are also signed up for New York City. So we're going to make them rep Shelton Athletics loud and proud.
What is that in people? I can't do are we talking 40, 50 people here?
We're talking about like 15 to 20.
15 to 20 people going to New York from the gym and the classes to do it all together.
Yeah.
And what's that do from a community standpoint, having, 20 people training towards the same goal and working towards the same thing? Have you noticed a difference in the broader community, or is it still too much of a subset to really notice any meaningful change?
No, it really has permeated our community in a positive way because I think, again, it's giving people another avenue to express their fitness, have goals to work towards. I think some people have been kind of let down by the direction that CrossFit has gone in terms of kind of accessible competing. And so I really feel like this has been something that has really sparked a lot of fire for those people that have competitive spirit and who want to do it on a higher level. And really higher level, I just mean like go to a competition that's really well run and like have an awesome time. Because Hyrox does that excellently.
Yes. Like one of the things that I just did my first one. And one of the things that was crazy for me is just, when you're a newbie, the experience that you have on race day is the same as a world champion. And as someone who also, went to some local CrossFit competitions and didn't compete well, like I can say the difference you have at like a local CrossFit competition is vastly different than somebody competing on the main stage at the games or Wadapalooza or whatever. And so having that environment is what makes it special in a way that, like, you know, if you were a gym who was heavy in the open, kind of was reminiscent of those like early days of the open competing. And it was just a very cool vibe. So I'll wrap this up by asking you, for gym owners who may be a little skeptical about Hyrox, who may think Hyrox is a fad, who may be kind of like putting their head in the sand when it comes to what's going on over there, what would you say to that demographic of owners?
Yeah, I would say you should definitely jump in. And the thing is, it might be a fad. We were actually having a good discussion about this on our hike on the last Tinker meetup. But the thing is, it's not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. Think about the trajectory of other things like CrossFit and like the lifespan of those things and where they went. I really feel like Hyrox is just kind of climbing that hill right now. And we haven't even seen the full kind of culmination or explosion of it. And I think it's going to continue to build in popularity, and you'll be missing out on a really large subset of people who could potentially be interested in your gym and services.
Well, I'm personally looking forward to following your journey as an athlete and your journey as a business owner. And we'll do a follow-up show in 6 months to a year to see how the program has developed. And for those of you listening, you can go creep on Lauren's gym. And if you want more information on how to launch a Hyrox program, in the show notes, we'll link to how to launch a Hyrox program in your gym step by step. So go grab that guide. It'll give you the playbook. But, you know, Lauren covered the meat and potatoes here. Now, if you're a gym owner out there and you got value from this episode, please subscribe and like, and we'll catch you next week on Run a Profitable Gym. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, John.